Have you ever had a conversation where you walked away thinking, "That's not even what I said"? You try to explain something clearly, calmly, even carefully, but somehow your words come back at you in a completely different form. It's like you're having one conversation and the other person is having a different one entirely. And the more you try to clarify, the worse it gets. You start explaining yourself again and again, but nothing seems to fix it. And slowly something changes inside you. You begin to hesitate before speaking. You think twice before sharing your thoughts. Sometimes you just stay quiet, not because you don't have something to say, but because you don't want your words to be used against you again. Now here's the uncomfortable part. When this happens once, it might be a misunderstanding. But when it keeps happening with the same person, in the same pattern, it's not confusion anymore. It's behavior. And that behavior has a purpose. In normal conversations, people try to understand what you're saying. Even when they disagree, they respond to your actual point. But with certain people, understanding is not the goal. Control is. And one of the easiest ways to gain control in a conversation is by changing the meaning of what the other person says. Because the moment your words are altered, the conversation is no longer about your point. It becomes about defending something you never even meant. Think about how simple this is. You say something neutral, something reasonable, something normal. But instead of responding to that, the other person slightly shifts your words. Not in a way that looks obvious, but just enough to change the meaning. And once that shift happens, the entire conversation moves in a different direction. For example, imagine you say, "I just need some time to think about this." That's a calm, balanced statement. But the response you get is, "So you don't care about this anymore." Now suddenly, you're not talking about needing time. You're defending your level of care, and the conversation is no longer in your control. This is where the pattern begins. And once you start noticing it, you realize how often it happens in everyday life. In relationships, it's very common. You might express a small concern, something like, "I didn't feel comfortable with how that situation went." You're not attacking, you're not blaming, you're just sharing how you felt. But the response comes back as, "So you think I'm a bad person?" That's not what you said. But now you're stuck explaining yourself. You say, "No, that's not what I meant." But the conversation has already shifted. Now you're defending an accusation instead of discussing your concern. And after this happens a few times, something starts to change in you. You begin choosing your words more carefully. You start avoiding certain topics. You hesitate before bringing up anything that could lead to conflict. Not because you're wrong, but because you know your words will be turned into something else. The same thing happens in workplaces. You suggest something like, "Maybe we should review this before moving forward." It's a responsible suggestion, but someone responds with, "So you're saying this entire plan is wrong?" Now again, your words are twisted. You didn't say the plan is wrong. But now the room is looking at you, and you're forced to defend yourself. And while you're busy correcting that misunderstanding, the original point you wanted to make is lost. This is how conversational control works. It doesn't look aggressive. It doesn't look obvious. It looks like a misunderstanding. But when it keeps happening, it's not a misunderstanding anymore. It's a pattern. And the most important part of this pattern is repetition. Think about it carefully. Does this happen with everyone in your life? Probably not. It usually happens with specific people. And with those people, it happens again and again. That's your biggest clue. Because real misunderstandings are random, but behavioral patterns are consistent. Now let's go a little deeper into how this actually works. People who turn your words against you often use a very simple technique. They take a part of what you said, remove it from its context, and then exaggerate it. This creates a new version of your statement that is easier to attack. For example, you say, "I didn't like how that situation was handled." That's a specific statement, but they respond with, "So everything was terrible." Now your statement has been expanded into something more extreme, and now you're stuck correcting it. Or you say, "I think we should do this differently next time." And they respond with, "So you think what we did was completely wrong?" Again, your words are stretched beyond what you actually said. And here's why this works so well. The human brain reacts quickly when it feels misunderstood. The moment someone changes your words, your instinct is to fix it. You want to say, "That's not what I meant." And while you're focused on correcting them, they control the direction of the conversation. Over time, this creates a dynamic where you are always explaining, and they are always shaping the conversation. Now let's bring this into a very real everyday scenario. Imagine you're with a group of friends. You casually say, "I've been really busy lately." That's a simple statement, but someone responds, "So you don't have time for us anymore." Now your words are no longer about being busy. They're about your loyalty as a friend. And now you're defending something completely different. This shift creates emotional pressure, and emotional pressure changes behavior. After a few experiences like this, you might stop saying things like, "I'm busy." You might start over-explaining yourself, or you might avoid saying anything at all. And that's exactly how this pattern affects people over time. It slowly changes how you communicate. It makes you more cautious, more quiet, more defensive. And the person who is creating this pattern gains more control in conversations without ever needing to raise their voice or directly dominate you. Now, here's something very important to understand. Not every person who misunderstands you is doing this intentionally. Sometimes people genuinely misinterpret things. That's normal. But the difference is consistency. If someone occasionally misunderstands you, that's human. But if someone repeatedly turns your words in a way that puts you in a defensive position, especially during important conversations, that's a pattern. And patterns tell you more than words ever will. Once you start seeing this clearly, something interesting happens. You stop reacting the same way. Instead of immediately jumping in to defend yourself, you pause. You recognize what's happening. And instead of getting pulled into their version of your words, you bring the conversation back to reality. You might say something simple like, "That's not what I said. Let's stay with what I actually said." This does something powerful. It breaks the pattern. Because the pattern depends on you reacting emotionally and trying to fix the distortion. But when you stay calm and bring the focus back, the control starts shifting. And the more you do this, the more the dynamic changes. Now let's talk about the deeper impact of this behavior. When someone constantly turns your words against you, it doesn't just affect conversations. It affects your confidence. You start second-guessing yourself. You think more before speaking. You question whether your words will be misunderstood again. And sometimes, you choose silence just to avoid the situation. And that silence is where the real impact shows. Because over time, you're not just avoiding conflict. You're reducing your own voice. And that's why understanding this pattern is so important. Not to become defensive, Not to assume everyone is against you, but to become aware of how conversations can be shaped. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. You start noticing when your words are being slightly changed. You notice when conversations shift away from your actual point, and you begin to understand the difference between real communication and controlled communication. And that awareness gives you something very important. It gives you control back, because now instead of reacting automatically, you respond consciously. You stay with your point. You don't chase every distortion. You don't over-explain yourself. And slowly, the pattern loses its power, because it only works when you don't see it. And once you do, everything changes. If this made you reflect on your own conversations, then you're already starting to see things differently. And that awareness is the first step toward protecting your confidence and your voice. If you found this helpful, like the video and subscribe for more insights into human behavior and psychological patterns. And I'd like to ask you something. Have you ever experienced a situation where someone kept twisting your words in a conversation? Share your experience in the comments. Someone reading your story might finally understand what they've been going through.